Après 8 ans de Justin Trudeau, le taux de criminalité violente a augmenté de 32 Des meurtres liés aux gangs de rue a augmenté de 92 C'est en partie le résultat des changements que Justin Trudeau a apportés à notre système de justice. Il a permis à un petit nombre de criminels violents et récidivistes d'aller sur les rues pour refaire des mêmes crimes pour lesquels ils avaient été déjà arrêtés. On sait que c'est une petite minorité, une très petite minorité de criminels violents qui font pratiquement tous les actes criminels. Et on sait encore qu'il y a certaines qui ont été trouvées coupables et qu'après leur sentence, ils sont arrêtés encore pour faire la même chose, mais ils sont libérés sous caution pour refaire les mêmes actes pour lesquels ils avaient été déjà accusés criminellement. Nous croyons que le Code criminel devrait cibler ce petit groupe qui pourrait être vu dans les statistiques livrées par les maires de la Colombie-Britannique, où on voit à Vancouver, les mêmes 40 personnes ont été arrêtées 6 000 fois dans un an. Ça veut dire 150 fois par personne par année à Vancouver. Si on peut enlever ces 40 personnes, on peut éliminer des milliers d'actes violents à Vancouver. Donc, c'est la raison pour laquelle le Parti conservateur revendique que le gouvernement renverse les changements que Justin Trudeau a apportés à notre système de libération sous caution. Et aujourd'hui, l'un de nos députés va annoncer son plan d'introduire un projet de loi pour faire un changement de gros bon sens pour protéger la sécurité publique. Thank you very much for coming. After 8 years of Justin Trudeau, violent crime is up 32%, gang killings up 92%. We know that a very tiny minority of violent repeat offenders are doing almost all of this crime. It is not done by one young person who makes a single mistake in his life. It is done by the same repeat violent offenders that go out again and again and again and reoffend. Police tell us that often they have to arrest the same people multiple times in the very same day because they are released again and again on bail. For example, the BC Union of Mayors wrote a letter in which they said that the same 40 offenders were arrested 6,000 times in 1 year in Vancouver. That's 150 arrests per offender per year. If you could just take those 40 violent offenders off the street, you'd have 6,000 fewer victims of violent crime. So we're not talking about massively increasing the number of people who are incarcerated. We're talking about targeting the most violent repeat offenders who've demonstrated through their habitual conduct a tendency to reoffend and a likelihood that they will do so. And that is why we are calling on the Trudeau government to reverse its broken bail system, the system that Trudeau brought in, which allows the same violent repeat offenders to get same-day bail to go out and reoffend again and again. We're not talking about the young person who makes 1 or 2 mistakes when they're 19 or 20. We're talking about someone who's committed 15, 20, 30 offenses and then is arrested again for the very same reason and released onto the street to reoffend. Police tell us that that is the single biggest reason why crime has exploded under Trudeau's watch. So we asked Trudeau to fix what he's broken, and if he doesn't, we have here Frank Caputo, a former Crown prosecutor, who's introducing a bill that will fix the damage Trudeau caused. We believe everybody's entitled to safe streets and that the criminal justice system should keep people safe from violent offenders, and particularly repeat violent offenders. So I'd like to thank Member of Parliament for Kamloops and former prosecutor Frank Caputo for introducing this bill, and I now invite him to address the assembled media. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. I appreciate those remarks. The premiers have asked for bail reform. All 10 provinces and 3 territories have asked for bail reform. Police have asked for bail reform. Most importantly, the public has asked for bail reform. As I was sitting at home over the holidays, thinking about recent events and how people were talking about bail, I expected to come back to a session where the Trudeau government would put forward legislation to deal with the issue of bail. I was surprised, candidly, when they didn't. Somebody, therefore, had to step up because the Liberals wouldn't, and that meant that the Conservatives had to. And I heeded that call because I felt it was necessary. This morning, I was honored to table my 4th private member's bill, Bill C-313. Bill C-313 is a small step on a long journey when it comes to bail. The problem we have is this. Repeat violent offenders are generally a small group, but that small group is causing a disproportionate amount of victimization, especially as it relates to firearm offending. That's why Bill C-313 creates a new bail regime that will make the hill go from a small hill to climb for repeat gun offenders or for repeat violent offenders to a much steeper hill to climb. This is what the bill says in summary. If a person is prohibited under 2 sections of the Criminal Code from having a gun, person gets prohibited for serious offenses like robbery, possessing a loaded, restricted, or prohibited firearm, murder. Some of the most serious indictable offenses will get you a prohibition, or if a judge has said this person needs a prohibition because that is what the law requires to keep Canadians safe. If a person is prohibited in one of those 2 ways and they commit or are alleged to commit a serious gun offense, then a new bail regime will apply that'll make it much more difficult for that person to be released on bail. The discretion will always remain with the trial judge, but what we are trying to do is address the fact that a very small group of dangerous people are committing a disproportionate number of serious firearms crimes. I personally have seen this in my time as a Crown prosecutor and can say that we will be looking at a discrete group who have in the past committed serious offenses to cause them to be on a weapons prohibition, and then subsequently are alleged to commit a serious gun crime. At the end of the day, we need to remember that bail and bail reformation is going to take time. It's going to be a large project, but this is one small step in that project, and what we're doing is we're targeting firearms offenders for the most serious offenses, because to me, that is one of the most logical places to start. And with that, I'll take your questions.
Do you have a colleague that's willing to switch spots with you? Right now, this bill is quite far down the notice paper, so in order for this to be a priority, presumably there's going to have to be some movement. Do you have a colleague willing to trade spots?
I'm certainly open to talking with my colleagues about that, but we'll obviously keep that behind closed doors, and if anything changes, we'll let you know.
But as of now, this bill is not likely to get debated for some time. Is it a priority for the Conservatives?
Of course it's a priority for us. That's why we're here telling you about it, and one of the things that I'm saying in bringing this bill forward is that there needs to be change.
Mr. Poilievre, can I ask you a question? I'm wondering if you would repeal measures that require judges to take a suspect's Indigenous heritage into consideration when deciding whether to grant bail.
That's not part of this proposal. We've not announced anything of the sort, but we believe that Indigenous Canadians deserve protection from violent crime. We know that the Trudeau policies of catch and release have been particularly hard on Indigenous people. We saw Indigenous victims of crime in the mass stabbing in Saskatchewan, a stabbing that was carried out by repeat violent offenders who should not have been out but were on conditional release. And so we know that Indigenous people and other marginalized people are disproportionately victims of crime, and we want to protect them from that. And if I could just add to your answer, to Frank's answer, Mr. Caputo's answer, we also welcome the Liberal government to take Mr. Caputo's bill and introduce it next week so that they could pass it into law, and that would be the fastest way to repair the damage that Trudeau has done to our bail system. Thank you.
To that point, I wonder, the opposition Conservatives have had success in the past going to the Liberals and asking, to take a bill and move it forward. You've done it with some benefit programs. You've done it in any. So, do you plan to sit down with Minister Lametti and see if there's a way that they can meet the public demand for this, attach this to some other bill, do something?
Well, when I first got back to Parliament after the break, I was very surprised when Minister Lametti said what he said. And if you look at his first two responses, I believe it was January 30th and January 31st, in question period, it seemed as though he had no interest in doing that. Now, he has somewhat changed his position, it seems, as though to be open with that. Happy to sit down with Minister Lametti. We have a good relationship, and if he is prepared to bring this into law through government legislation, I will be the first one to help him do that and lend my experience, because at the end of the day, what we need to do is keep Canadians safe, and that's not a partisan issue.
Was this something you had been drafting for a while, or was this motivated by the recent attention on bail reform, something you've done in the last month or so?
Bail has been an issue in my home community of Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou. And it's something that has been spoken about. So this really came to head over the holidays is when I really started working on this.
Okay, last question. Question for Mr. Poilievre, just about the riding boundary changes. What are your thoughts? A lot of MPs have complaints and concerns. What are your thoughts?
To be honest, I haven't been directly involved in them. I let members of Parliament raise concerns about whether or not the boundary changes proposed for their ridings are fair. And I'll let the process run its course on that.
And on your riding in particular, it would take in the riding of Nepean, which has voted Liberal in the last election.
This is terrible, but I have to admit I haven't studied the latest design of my riding. So I appreciate, maybe you could give me a briefing after the press conference.
Mr. Poilievre, you talked about
thank
Dave
you.
Smith cremation, the stabbing spree there. That had to do with the Parole Board of Canada.
That's
that
right.
had nothing to do with bail reform.
And I said that in my remarks.
But what, if anything, would the Conservatives be prepared to do when it comes to reform on parole or conditional release? Because the measures you're talking about right now would not have addressed that.
No, and as I said in my remarks, I did say it was a conditional release issue. It was not a bail reform issue. Sure. But we do need to look at conditional release, because in this case, the accused, had something like 50 prior convictions. We're not talking about some young people who've made one or two mistakes in their lives. We're talking about lifelong career criminals. And when you've been convicted of 50 violent offenses, you should stay behind bars. So we will come forward with other proposals to protect the public from career violent criminals who are released early because of the way the system works. We need to do this in order to protect the public from the kinds of tragedies that we witnessed in Saskatchewan. Okay, thank you very much.